Hello Explorer, thanks for joining us again and welcome back to our channel. If you're joining us for the first time here at Explorer, we go beyond borders to bring you inspiring content and also some very educating information. Hopefully you found some time to have watched our previous videos. If you haven't done so, we will encourage you to do so. Today we are shining our light onto the coast of the Republic of Ghana. In this episode, we'll be able to explore to you how amazing and shameful the coast of Ghana has been in history. Ghana is a great country with very inspiring stories and motivational aspects for a nation. But again, the country's coastline does have a history that can never be ignored. So in this episode, we'll be having that journey with you, and we encourage you to watch this episode to the end. So without any much delay, we shall just go straight into it. If you take a closer look at the coast of Ghana, and you will find things like mirage and ancient castles and forts, marking the beginning of slaves' perilous journey during the era of slave trade. Those fortresses were the last memory slaves had of their homeland before being shipped off across the Atlantic and to never return again. For those particular areas, it's a shocking history of Ghana's slave fortresses and its significance to the modern day Ghana for those of you who are inspired about this country. So in this episode, we shall dig in deeper to bring to you those particular fortresses and the reason why they could never be ignored within the Ghanaian history, and the world to also know what actually happened in those areas. Between 1482 and 1786, clusters of castles and fortresses were erected along the 500 kilometers long coastlines of Ghana, between Keta in the east and also Benin in the west. Back then, Ghana was called the Gold Coast due to its vast quantities of gold, and those strongholds served as fortified trading posts, offering protections from other foreign settlers and threats from the African population. Placed strategically as links in the trade routes established by the Portuguese in the 15th century, who were the first settlers on the Gold Coast. The forts thereafter also were seized, attacked and exchanged, sold and abandoned during the most 4 centuries of struggle between European powers for domination over the Gold Coast. Moving backward, as early as the 1500s, the settlers' interest turned to slave trade in light of the growing demand for human labor in the New World. In this case, you're talking about the United States, Americas, and also the Caribbean. From holding gold, ivory, and also worse, the castles gradually imprisoned slaves who were reduced to yet another commodity. The majestic fortress that you could imagine in this coast along Ghana's breathtaking coastline housed dark dungeons overflowing with misery and also despair. Right up until the slave trade, most were gradually abolished by each of the colonial powers in the first half of the 18th century. By this point, the irreversible and immeasurable damages was done, and from West Africa alone, it is estimated that about 6 million slaves had been shipped to other countries. About 10 to 15%, so to point out, perished at sea during the so-called Middle Passage, never reaching their final destination. If you are new to Explorer, we will encourage you to subscribe and share our videos to your different network. The castles were ultimate shopping in many ways. They provided the last experience that men and women had in their homeland before their final departure. For those who didn't make it to the New World, the castles were the last place they ever saw on land. The last stretch of hopes would either away the very day of captivity in the castles. On the seaboard side of the coast, slaves' castles was the door of no return, a portal through which the slaves were lowered into the boats and then loaded like cargo onto big slave ships further out at sea, never to set foot in their homeland again, and with a final goodbye to the freedom they once knew. One of the most famous castles in Ghana's dark episode slave history is the Cape Coast Castle. It began as a trade lodge constructed by the Portuguese in 1555 on the part of the Ghana's the Gold Coast, which later became known as Cape Coast then. In 1653, Following Sweden's conquest of the Cape Coast, the Swedish African Company constructed a permanent wooden fortress for trade in timber and gold. A decade later, the fort was reconstructed in stone when the Danes seized power from the Swedish. The fort then passed through the hands of the Dutch and even at local Fetu chiefs at some point before being conquered by the British in 1664. Over the years, the fort was increasingly used for developing slave trade, which came to a peak in the 18th century. By 1700 then, the fort had been transformed into a castle and also served as the headquarters of the British colonial governor. Moving forward, up to 1,000 male and 500 female slaves were shackled and crammed in the castle's dark, poorly ventilated dungeons with no space to lie down and very little light. Without water or sanitation, the floor of the dungeons was littered with human waste, and also many captives fell seriously ill. The men were separated from the women, and the captors regularly raped helplessly, in that particular case, the women. The castle also featured confinement cells, small pitch black spaces for prisoners and also who revolted and were seen as rebellious. Once the slaves set foot in the castle, they could spend up to 3 months in captivity under those dreadful conditions before being shipped off to the New World. If you are just new to Explorer, we will encourage you to subscribe and also turn on the notification button so you never miss a video. Moving forward with regards to this incredible and terrible experience in the Ghana coast with regards to the fortresses, an environment of harsh contrast, the castle also had some extravagant chambers devoid of the stench and also misery of the dungeons. Only a couple of meters below, for example, the British governors and officers' quarters were spacious and airy, with beautiful parquet floors and scenic views of the blue water of the Atlantic. There was also a chapel in the castle enclosures for the officers, traders, and their families as they went along or about their normal day-to-day life, completely detached from the unfathomable human sufferings they were consciously inflicting on those particular slaves. Moving forward, the castle's involvement with slavery eventually stopped as a result of the British ban on the slave trade. Cape Coast Castle went back to its previous function as an essential site for non-human commodity trade, after which it was turned into an army training facility. In 1957, when Ghana became the first African state to regain independence from British colonial rule, the ownership of the castle was transformed to the new government and subsequently to the Ghana Museum and Monument Board. The castle only underwent considerable restoration work in the early 1990s with the help of donors' funds, and also it's currently a well-visited museum and historical site. If you are new here, we would encourage you to subscribe and share our videos to your different network. Looking at this terrible situation that this coast presents in the Ghanaian history, which you need to understand a little bit more, another famous slave castle which we're going to be looking into here is the Elmina Castle. Often called St. George's Castle for those of you who want to explore a little bit deeper. Situated in the town of Elmina, it's about 13 kilometers from the Cape Coast Castle. It's known as the oldest European structure in Ghana. The castle's construction began in 1482, following the arrival of the Portuguese on the Gold Coast. That was in 1471, and it served to protect the Portuguese settlement area named São Jorge de Mina. If you go deep a little bit to understand, over the decades, various parts of the castle were rebuilt, with trade remaining the main focus. However, by the 17th century, most of this trade was in people. In 1637, to dig deep, the Dutch seized control of the Gold Coast and continued to use Elmina Castle as a place to store slaves until their departure. The Dutch made some substantial changes to the castle, such as setting up a marketplace where slaves could be auctioned. The conditions were similar to that of the neighboring Cape Coast Castle. In the dungeons, light could only be entered through the doorways or few small holes at the end of the ceiling. Any revolt was harshly disciplined. Men were sent to the condemned cell with no lightning and were starved to death, while women were beaten and chained to cannonballs in the courtyard. Mindful of the possible attack, the Dutch built a bastion, Fort Soesenberg, known as the Saint Jago, on the hills opposition Elmina Castle, which overlooked its big brother house of horror. If you are new here, we would encourage you to subscribe and share our videos to your different network. This video is being made to educate you as to the shameful aspect that occurred in the Ghana coast, looking at the fortresses and those particular structures that make up this coast. If you want to go deep a little bit to understanding this, under the rule of the Dutch West Indies Company, around 30,000 slaves and over a year passed through the Elmina doors of no return, right up till the 1814, when the Dutch slave trade was abolished, 7 years after the British. Ceded to the British in 1872, Elmina Castle was hardly in use until Ghana's independence. Thereafter, it became a training center for Ghanaian police recruits and, surprisingly, a school for some time, before also being converted into a history museum. Other castles and forts that remains includes Fort Christiansburg or Osu Castle, for those of you who want to know, the Ushers Fort and Fort James. Besides museums, some fortresses have been transformed into government offices, prisons, and also guest houses, while others are nothing more than abandoned stone ruins with a few walls standing. UNESCO has declared many of those castles and forts World Heritage Sites of great historical importance. However, due to limited funding, preservation has been limited, and also the site continues to deteriorate as we speak. If you're going to go deep a little bit to understand this shameful part of the Ghanaian history and the Ghanaian coast, we would like you also to dig deep a little bit and to understand why this is terrible if you want to go a little bit closer. However, today 30 odd surviving forts, castles and former trading posts can be found along Ghana's coast, many bearing witnesses to the largest forced migration in history and to the atrocities humanity is capable of committing. Castles such as Elmina, Cape Coast Castle, and also Ushered Fort that have been turned into museums offer guided tours, some moving those tours literally walk visitors through historic slave castles, bringing to life the heartbreaking experience of the slaves. If you are new to Explorer, we will encourage you to subscribe and share our videos to your different network. Currently, it is extremely popular among African American tourists who visits this part of Africa and wanted to know more about their heritage. Nowadays, the castles are also welcoming more and more local Ghanaians interested in learning about the slave period in their country. More than just museums, the castles are filled with haunting histories revealing the horrors of the slave trade. By serving a strong reminder of Ghana's dark history, and castles continue to pay respect to millions of people who languished at the hands of slavers, so to say. They are far from forgotten, even in the 21st century. Hopefully, we've been able to inform you with regards to this shameful part of the coast of Ghana and why this particular area has some incredible shameful castles that has plagued the human race. It's a terrible situation, but again, this particular episode has been done for the purpose of documentary and educating the masses. For now, I want to thank you for watching The Explorer. If you are new here, we will encourage you to subscribe and share our videos to your different network. If you feel that we've been spot on with regards to this shameful coastline in Ghana, with regards to those fortresses and the impact that they have in the Ghanaian history, we would like to hear from you in the comment section. But if you also feel that we've missed something, we would also like to hear from you. But without any delay, we want to thank you for watching our channel. We encourage you to check our other episodes on our channel. And for now, we want to wish you good luck. We're looking forward to meeting you in our next episode. Thank you and have a good day. Bye-bye.